Hi, this is my video review for Crimson Exodus. Crimson Exodus is a dark fantasy RPG. The thing with fantasy role-playing games is that they become a bit generic or repetitive because they recycle the same themes and rules mechanics, but I think Crimson Exodus brings some pretty interesting and fresh things to the table. The PDF is of great quality. It has a lot of hyperlinks, so you can easily navigate your way through the document if you have any rules questions and you need to reference something when you're playing the game. And well, the book starts with talking about core concepts about what a role-playing game is, and the author Klaus Bornik clearly states that he expects the player to be a bit familiar with role-playing games, but he gives a pretty good introduction to what a role-playing game is, and he gives a lot of great advice throughout the entire book. So even though this book may seem for advanced players at first, I think it's a pretty good introduction to what an RPG is. So if you're a beginner and you're trying to enter this hobby, this exciting world of role-playing games, you can easily learn how to play one of these types of games with this book. The core concepts also underline the responsibilities that a GM or game master and a player have, and I think this is a great thing. It's like a silent contract, specifying what a game master should do and what is expected of a player, and it's very good advice in general. The good thing about this book is that it comes with a campaign setting. The world in this game is pretty bleak, pretty dark. It's filled with conflict. There was a powerful empire, an elven empire, but for a mysterious reason, they left their empire behind. They went on an exodus, and they really don't give a certain reason. It's part of the mystery of the game why they left everything they had behind, all their great cities and riches and political structure. But this created opportunities for barbarian tribes, orcs, and a mysterious undead plague to create conflict in this world. So there's a lot to do for the adventurers in this game. They may focus their adventures on political intrigues resulting from the abandoned empire, or they may focus on finding out what exactly the undead plague is, or they may try to fight a war against the savage barbarians who are taking everyone, making them slaves. And there are a lot of things for the adventurers to do. It has some generic things. There are dwarves, elves, etc. But the way that they handle this empire that was very glorious, and suddenly they just left it for some reason, some very unknown quest or whatever they are looking for. It leaves a barren land filled with a lot of dread and chaos that the players can easily find jobs or glory in it. The people seem a bit generic at first too, but they have interesting twists. For example, the dwarves, they are not your generic cave-dwelling dwarves. They are mostly the most featured dwarves in this game are those that live next to the sea. They are more like fishermen. And you have also the Thoth that seem like well, at least to me, they look like a mix of dwarves and halflings, but with very dark secrets and omens and prophecies. You also have humans, of course, and orcs and half orcs, but they are all painted with the colors of Crimson Exodus. They all have to do something in the great scheme of things of the Exodus, the fallen empire, the barbarians, the undead plague, and all of that. All in all, the setting has a strong frontier feel. Like you have to be really tough to inhabit this world. Facing off against natural dangers, terrible beasts, but also against the machinations of other dwarves, elves, and humans. The character creation is also pretty interesting in this game because you really feel like you're fleshing a living, breathing character. this is not just rolling your stats and that's it. You have to determine a lot of different things. For example, once you choose your people, if you're a dwarf, an elf, etc., you determine your attributes, which are pretty standard. You have your strength, agility, dexterity. Dexterity and agility are two separate concepts in this game, because dexterity is more related to your precision, precise movements, and how you manipulate things. And agility is more related to your nimbleness, your ability to dodge and move around. There are two attributes that I consider are pretty interesting: the demon and the spirit attribute. They kind of remind me of that little devil and the little angel that are telling you to do good and bad things. The demon attribute is related to violence, intimidation, raw power in general, and the spirit attribute is related to mercy, love, and good things overall. If you have more than the other, if you can't have them, it's very difficult to have them at a balance. If you have a lot of spirit, you will probably have a very low demon attribute, and the other way around. And they also determine other things in this game. For example, the spells you can cast. Someone with a very high demon attribute will cast very dark magic, demonic, and with somebody with a high spirit attribute will cast spells more related with summoning and protection and things like that. Mm, Natural beings like trees and animals. You also have to customize your character with a variety of talents, paths, aspirations, characteristics, and these paths are very interesting. They are a bit like character classes. They are not as rigid as if you chose a fighter, you have to only use fighter related weapons, and that's it. You fight, and that's the only thing you do. The creation system is very flexible, and you can create warriors or barbarians in very different from the stereotypes. The paths are that of the warrior, barbarian, swordsman, archer, fist. That's kind of like the way of the fist, like your typical monk, but with its own twists. You have the way of command, the way of the rogue, the way of the beast, the hermit, the lore master, the witch, the sorcerer, and the way of the demon. You have a lot of interesting paths, so you can create the character is more akin to your style of roleplay. And your character also has a very interesting thing called trigger ammo. Trigger ammo is similar to fate points, hero points, or bennies. They are ammunition that you can use so to change certain roles or to save your character from certain death. And this ammo goes between the players and the game master, and the game master can use this spent ammo to do the same thing for different monsters, villains, and so on. It's a steady flow of spending ammo so that player characters and villains can change their destiny a bit. And this also determines how grim and gritty the game becomes, because if you use them constantly, it will feel slightly cinematic, because this game is very gritty even in its most cinematic way. But if you use them very sparingly and you give little chance to regain this ammo, the game becomes highly lethal, very, very gritty. The way to recover this ammo is by spending it. If the player spends the ammo, it goes to the game master, and the game master rewards players with intelligent role playing and when they fulfill certain objectives, he gives them ammo back. And you also have relationships, so that your character can easily even go in adventures with their entire family or pets, friends. So this is a game that suits that henchman style of play where you're controlling one character, but he also has many helpers and men under their command. The skills in this game are handled in a very simple way. If your character is supposed to know something, the success is automatic. So if, for example, a fighter needs to chop something down, it's an automatic success most of the time. but for more complex or specific task resolutions, you have the the core system of dice rolling for this game, which is very interesting. To make a check in this game, you need basically five types of dice. You need a six-sided dice, uh, a D4 or four-sided dice. You need eight-sided dice and 10-sided dice and 12-sided dice. Those are the dice you need to make the rolls. But these dice can be scaled, or you can play with the number of dice you usually roll. For example, let's say you have a skill that you can only roll three eight-sided dice. So, but you need a higher number than eight. How are you going to get that? Well, you could change your three eight-sided dice for two 10-sided dice, or you could change the two 10-sided dice for a 12-sided die. But as you can tell, it's a bit riskier to roll just one die, but that gives you that may give you the chance to roll the number you need. So if you needed an 11, of course you're not going to roll two eight-sided dice. You need a D12. But if, for example, if the task doesn't need a high number, it's relatively simple, but you need a success, even if it's a mediocre one, a very low success. You can change for example, you had two 10-sided dice, you can change them for three eight-sided dice, so that the probabilities of success, even though it's not a very spectacular or effective success, go up. And you use them for this check for almost everything. When you are bartering, when you are in a diplomatic encounter, when you are trying to climb someplace or swim, you can roll these dice to see if you pass the check. And the author recommends that failure must be dramatic. It must add something interesting to the table. Don't just you try to jump and you failed your roll. Sorry, your character is dead. No, he says to try to add to the story. Like, for example, if the character didn't make the jump, maybe he fell down to some cave or some place like that. And that's because the more successful you are by rolling the dice, gives you different degrees of success and failure, and this may help decorate the game. For example, if you, going back to the jump example, if you jumped across a chasm or a pit, if you had a normal success, maybe your character just made the jump. But if you had an impressive success, maybe your character made the jump and he's still able to keep running a few more feet. And if you failed, maybe your character didn't fail in a catastrophic way. Maybe he's hanging from a plant or a ledge or something. But if he failed miserably, he's most probably dead. And the combat in this game is very complex. It has a lot of depth to it. Once you get the hang of it, and the battles are very smooth. Battles usually end in a few rounds, but because the combat here is very lethal. But when you are starting to learn this combat, combats may take a bit of a while, because there are so many things you can do in a single fight. You can do almost everything you can imagine. You can toss sand into the opponent's face so that he's distracted and you attack him more easily. You can get him out of balance by dodging and then pushing him around. You can attack specific parts of the body, and that's one of the things I love about this of the character sheet in this game. It has a paper doll like those old school PC games, and you can see exactly where the blow is going to land by rolling some dice or by aiming your attack. And the tactics, as I said, they're very varied. You have a good selection, so that each combat you can try new things. You have wrestling, you can throw things, you can improvise, you can handle multiple attackers with a special shield block. There are so many good things. And your path, the way of the warrior, the barbarian, swordsman, further improves and lets you customize the way your character fights, because for example the warrior in this game is a very tactical or defensive character, but the barbarian is very reckless, as you can expect. He's all about dealing damage and throwing himself recklessly into danger. And in this game, the lethality of this game lies in that, for example, if you get hit on the head, you will probably either be unconscious or you may die. So usually battles are over very very fast. And you also have a complex system of wounds. You can't heal wounds here like those hit points where you regain them very fast. You need to rest and receive proper treatment. In There's a good section in the book that gives great advice about game mastering, and it talks about more about the demons and spirits of the game world, about the different kinds of casters. It talks about witchcraft, sorcery, black arts, alchemy, and it also talks about artifacts, herbs, and there are also a lot of dark secrets for your character to unravel in the campaign. Secrets about the orc tribes, about the specters and the haunted forests and the dragons, and there are so many things for the character to explore and find out. And another cool thing about this game is that it has a very complete traveling system. It's not complex, but it gives you a lot of tactic of options outside of combat on with consequences of what will happen if you take too long to reach a certain place, or if you travel with too much equipment, your character may get exhausted. And that's also related to combat. If you fight too many battles, your character will become exhausted. This is not superheroic game like Pathfinder, where your character can fight many battles and he's almost unscratched at the higher levels. But here, even if your character is a very seasoned, decent fighter, he will probably need to rest a lot of times. So fights are better avoided, so that you can fulfill your objective. And the experience system rewards this as well. You shouldn't engage in combat all the time, because you only get experience for fulfilling certain objectives and playing smart. The PDF also comes with a good adventure to start your game into your group into Crimson Exodus, and it's a very good adventure because it introduces you to the undead plague, and does it in a very comprehensive way for the player to not get lost in all these rules. And the bestiary is pretty good too, because you have a wide selection of natural and unnatural creatures. But all in all, I recommend that the players print or keep their tablets in handy for referencing rules during combat, because there are a lot of rules in this game. It's not really a crunchy game. It feels more like a toolkit where you can take and add what you want or what you need. But if the player really wants a deep role-playing experience, I recommend that he has his tablet or his printed rules nearby, so that he can see all the tactical options he has. Well, the game has a lot of good things. I really can't comment on a very negative point. Maybe some of the more hardcore players will find the theme a bit too generic. It has some original things, very interesting things, but they will say, oh no, another game about dwarves and elves. But if you give the theme a chance, you're going to find how it's different from other games. I also think it's not going to appeal to those who want like a very epic or super heroic experience, where your character somewhat fantastically or unrealistically fights hundreds and hundreds of enemies, and he won't suffer too much damage. This is a very gritty game with a frontier feel, where the character is fighting for his life throughout the course of the campaign. but I really recommend it. Give it a chance, and it's a great value overall. You have the complete game. You can get it at drive-thrurpg.com, and you have everything. You have your bestiary, your campaign setting, rules for almost everything, anything you can think of. And I congratulate Klaus Bornig on creating such an excellent game. Well, thanks for watching my review. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any comments, please write them down. I will read them. See you later.